I'm seeing a lot of talk from my colleagues on the left too as we shift toward this reinvigorated talk about Jim Crow and the past of this country. And as someone who is a direct descendant of a slave, as someone whose great-great-grandfather was born on a plantation, I can assure you, slavery is over. Jim Crow is dead. When I go anywhere, I don't see any white-only signs. I don't, I promise you. I am a black man that represents a white majority district in Texas. The great-great-grandson of a man born on a plantation stands before you today as a proud conservative Republican from Texas, as a believer and follower in Christ, and as a believer in what this country can be if we allow equality for not just Muslim Americans, not just Buddhist Americans, but also Christian Americans like yourself. God bless you, young man. You give me a lot of hope for the future of this country. Thank you for having the courage to yield back the remainder of my.
What's going on, everybody? I appreciate you guys pulling up, man. We got to talk about it, man, because Hakeem Jeffries, Timu Barack Obama, or as my sister Crystal so eloquently calls him, Spirit Airline Barack Obama, is losing his mind once again. Democrats are getting their tails whipped all across the country when it comes to the gerrymandering of these states. Democrats have gerrymandered pretty much every state that they could, you know, almost to its limits. Most states either have 0 Republican representation or 1 Republican in states where they probably should at minimum have 2, maybe 3. But Hakeem Jeffries and his cronies, they will stop at nothing to gain political power, not by challenging the Republican Party on ideas, policy, agenda, so forth and so on. No, they feel that the only way that they can win is to gerrymander these seats, and that is all that they have. I'm really sick and tired of this. I'm really sick and tired of the Democrat Party. Stand up on your ideas, stand on your policy, stand on the agenda that you have for the American people. But they can't, because their agenda is so wicked, it's so demonic, it's so evil that they can't stand on it, and they can't share it with even their own constituents, because if their own people actually knew what they stood for, they would flee from them as well. Hit the like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel. Let's go.
So Susan Del Bene said earlier today, we're going to win back control of the House. And the big fight will be what happens in between 2026 and 2028. Because we know this unprecedented assault on black political representation, the likes of which we have not seen since the Jim Crow era, the ghost of the Confederacy has afflicted the United States Supreme Court majority and is invading and haunting the nation right now, and we take that seriously. And we know it's going to continue, which is why Democrats are committed to launching a decisive and overwhelming response in advance of the 2028 election to ensure that it's the American people who are the ones who get to decide who's in the majority in the House, who's in the majority in the Senate, and ultimately in 2028, who gets elected as the next president of the United States of America.
If you do not know what the plan is, this is a last-ditch effort for Democrats, because they know they don't have the votes, they don't have the people that is willing to support them wholeheartedly. So the only thing that they have at this point is that interstate compact that Virginia just signed in. They're hoping that they can get other states to sign on to this. Let me keep this thing going. You'll see what I'm talking about here in a second.
In advance of 2028, where we will have additional states that will come online, including but not limited to New York, New Jersey, Colorado, Washington, Oregon, Illinois, and Maryland. That's at least 7 states where we will be able to unleash a decisive and forceful response to what they are doing in the Deep South. And I'm telling you right now, we will. As several of those governors have already publicly indicated, And as the Senate president in New Jersey just said earlier today.
Yeah, I'm telling you guys, their plan at this point is to try to change the law. Everything about Democrats is to change, not to, stand up on, what their beliefs are. No, it's to change. That's why they want to add Supreme Court justices. That's why, it was heard that they wanted to, lower the age of a Supreme Court justice down in Virginia so they could pretty much, exodus all of the current Supreme Court justices so they could put their own crop in there, all 7 seats. That's all that they had. They have nothing else. But I want you to hear from this young lady here.
This is probably one of the most important videos I've ever made in this channel because what's happening right now here in the US could change our entire system and the way we elect a president. So we know Democrats don't have strong chances to win the presidency, at least not in a near future. So what do? Do they find better candidates? Do they stop acting like lunatics? They improve their policies? No, of course not. They try to change an entire system. They try to cheat, which is what they do best. Let's talk about the bill that was signed today in Virginia, Bill HB 965, which basically puts them in what's called the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. So why should you care? Why does this matter? What does this bill actually do? So right now, your vote stays in your state, right? If the majority of people, for example, in Virginia, votes for a Republican candidate, that candidate is going to get all the electoral votes from Virginia. With this bill, what happens is that the state of Virginia can say, I don't care who my people voted for. I am going to give all of my electoral votes to the candidate the majority of the country voted for. So they can completely ignore their votes and just give it to a different candidate, which is insane. Now, the worst part of it is that Virginia is not the first state to sign this bill. We have 18 other states who are already part of it, all run by Democrats. And that's why I'm pointing fingers here, because they're the ones trying to change the game and how things work here in the United States when it comes to elections. They already have 222 electoral votes. If they get to 270, that's it. It's game over. The Electoral College will exist on paper only. Elections will become pure majority rule. 51% decides everything, 49% decides nothing. That's why Americans have been trying to explain to people that we are not a democracy. A democracy is always one step away from tyranny. If they get to do this, we're going to have no balance, no local representation, no protection for minority voices. That is not the system the United States was built on. So whether you're leaning left or right, you should at least understand what these changes are before it's too late for us to have a say in it.
She is 1000% correct. And if you notice, she mentioned it, out of the 50, there's 18 states that have already signed on to it. Every last one of them are Democrat led, every last one of them. So that lets you know that they know they don't have the votes. They know they don't have the voters to win. So this is all that they have. Hakeem Jeffries, he spilled the beans. He's letting it be known like, hey, we got one thing that we can do, and we're going to make it happen.
But Mr. Leader, I mean, you ultimately lost this, and you take personal.
Who lost?
You lost in the.
Who lost? Did the voters lose?
Well, Democrats did. You're lost.
Did the voters lose?
You take personal responsibility for investing so much time and resources, tens of millions of dollars, in ultimately fruitless effort.
We did the right thing, and this effort is not over.
They did the right thing. So here they are complaining, about gerrymandering when they've been gerrymandering for quite some time. If you look at the northeastern states, you look at Maryland, you look at Illinois, you look at the way they've done things. It's been atrocious what they've done. And what they attempted to do in Virginia was just outrageous. You go from one of the fairest states, 6-5, to what, 10-1? That was their goal. That was the grand scheme. And it backfired. It didn't work. So yes, they lost. And they spent $70 million doing so. And the DNC, they're hemorrhaging money right now. They're taking loans. They don't have the bread. They don't. That's why they're so upset about the USAID situation being shut down, because they were getting money off of this. They were laundering the money back into their coffers.
The House back in session for the first time since the Virginia Supreme Court struck down that state's redistricting attempt. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries writing the following in a letter yesterday. Quote, Republican extremists spent the last few days applauding their ongoing effort to rig the midterm elections based on two egregious judicial decisions dripping with far-right partisanship. We remain undeterred. Our effort to forcefully push back against the Republican redistricting scheme will not slow. He says we're just getting started. But what exactly are they getting started on, Katie? Because when a Supreme Court rules, that's typically it.
Well, and look, Hakeem Jeffries, he's so out of bounds here. This was a Democrat's desire to redistrict, right? The radical weaponization of the redistricting scam, and the Supreme Court struck it down on procedural errors in Virginia. And basically, the Democrats thought that they could do what they did in California and just squeeze through this redistricting map, except they got it through after early voting had already started. So if he cares about rule of law and procedure and actually the Virginia Constitution, then he will be well informed that they were out of bounds to even propose this in the first place in Virginia, Todd.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to continue to pound the table as much as possible, but he knows in his heart of hearts and in his mind of minds, this is it. This is over. There's no higher entity you can appeal to. Katie's.
Yeah, he knows that. But again, like I said earlier, they're taking the next step. The next step, which is what we talked about, earlier, the whole interstate compact. It's crazy. It's a crazy thought. And I would assume that, if it ever does pass, it's going to the Supreme Court and it will probably get kicked down. But this is all that the Democrats had at this point.
I tire of this game. I tire of you. Liberals, Democrats are at it again. We have Virginia. They struck it down. Now Hakeem Jeffries, who's supposedly being influenced and talked to and plotted with Obama, who should be retired but is trying to run the world. Why would a person who should be retired be so busy trying to run the world? Yeah, you want to further the advancement of a certain group of people worldwide. And this certain group of people are not Americans. He never was fighting for America. Okay, so now we have Obama, and there's a leaked phone call, and Hakeem Jeffries, and they want to get rid of the whole Supreme Court in Virginia, and they want to say they're too old. They're going to change the age limit. That way, they can pump the court full of everybody they want. This is the same song and dance every day. And then they act a fool, and then we talk about how they act a fool, and we can't believe how they're acting, and then they do it again tomorrow, and then we talk about it, and then they do it again tomorrow, and then we talk about it. When will this end? Because they're going to keep doing this, so we're going to have to start doing something different besides just sitting around being in shock and dismay at their behavior. This uncharted territory that we're in, where the left now acts absolutely uncivilized. They're full of hate. They're full of anger. They're full of violence. See, this is new, right? We're going to have to start having a different reaction.
Hey, it's not new. If you know anything about the history of the Democrat Party, this type of behavior, it's not new behavior. It's new actors, but the behavior is very, very or right on line or right on code with who the Democrat Party is and has always been. But I want to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comment section. What are your thoughts? Hit the like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel, turn the notifications on to all so you never miss an upload. Consider joining the ARP family or buy your brother a coffee. That link's in the description box below. And as always, keep God first. Stay prayed up. We'll catch up with you guys next time. Peace.
It is God who arms me with strength. Yeah, I'm battle ready. He trains my hands for battle. My heart stays steady. But thanks be to God, He gives us the victory. Through my Lord Jesus Christ, it can't live in me. I was down to the dirt, red clay on my shoes, old pain in my shirt, oh so bruised. Then the Lord hit my chest, kicked death from my breath, put power in my step.